What does it look like to start over? I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to move somewhere else. I'm going to take a step back. I have to take a step back. When you and I rebranded, so we rebranded from the Hyperconscious Podcast to Next Level University, our listens went down that year.
I went from that to I remember landscaping for my friend's mother for $100 in the hot sun for 4 hours. That's what starting over felt like. And I was driving a car that was $3,200 that I bought from my friend who he drove that car in high school. It was actually from my friend's sister. And I was broke.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode, number 1210, Where Are You Being a Pretender? Today, for episode number 1211, one thought pattern that's holding you back. I was on a podcast yesterday. And it was a really, really, really good podcast. This was a strong host, very aware, very hyper-conscious, somebody that's done a lot of work on themselves. And I went through my story about how I made 6 figures, and I had the moment where I opened my final pay stub and realized that it didn't make me any more fulfilled. It didn't fix any of my internal voids to make $100,000. Nothing changed. Now, was my bank account heavier? Yes. Was I able to afford more things? Yes. But intrinsically, internally, nothing shifted. And the person asked me, they said, why do you think it was so hard for you in that moment to let go of everything you had? And I said, that's interesting. It's a great question. Because it's not like I really let go of anything, but subconsciously I was like, look, I can't do what I'm doing anymore. I can't live this life anymore. And I said, honestly, my big fear was starting over. I had already reached the pinnacle, quote unquote, of where I wanted to reach in life. And I knew I was going to have to start over somewhere else completely. And that scared the hell out of me because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't even know how I became successful. I felt like I got lucky. And I've seen this with, and Alan, I'm sure you have too. I've worked with many podcast clients who are successful in real life, quote unquote, but starting a podcast, they are starting all over again. And it's hard for them. It's hard for them to lose. It's hard for them to maybe get laughed at. It's hard for them to have that identity shift or the judgment of other people. The thought pattern that's holding a lot of us back is starting over. One of the reasons you hear this quote often, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, because for many of us, we're comfortable with the certainty of what we have, even though it's not the level of quality we would like, right? I mean, I said this recently. I said, it's interesting for me to start another podcast because I'm not top 100 podcast Kev on that podcast. I mean, I am because, that's my credibility and my expertise, but I don't have a lot of listens. Nobody cares that I have a show about podcasting. It's not the same.
Coming up on 1,000.
I don't know how many, 1,000 downloads?
Coming up on 1,000.
Damn.
I think you're like 800 something.
Yeah. I don't know. I should know better than you. Unfortunately, I don't. So what does that say? It's a little bit alarming. I don't know.
It's metrics.
It's doing better than the Hyperconscious Podcast did initially, which is great. But for me, I have to go back and say, look, I'm starting over completely. All of the success I have on this side, I don't have over there. Now, I understand that's how it works, and I'm totally fine with it. And if anything, it helps me connect with my listeners because it's like, look, I'm doing the same thing as you. But I think a lot of us, we're so afraid. What does it look like to start over? I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to move somewhere else. I'm going to take a step back. I have to take a step back. When you and I rebranded, so we rebranded from the Hyperconscious Podcast to Next Level University, our listens went down that year.
Yeah, that was tough.
Our listens went down. And it felt, one of my big fears was that we were starting over.
Mm-hmm.
But that was one of the best decisions we've ever made, even though at the time, that thought pattern was trying to hold me back of, look, if you're starting over, what are people going to think?
I want to share this. So I posted this recently. So if you're on my social media, Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, you'll know this. In 2017, we had 1,079 listens.
Nice.
In 2018, we had 26,862 listens. 2019, 130,697 listens.
Pretty good.
2020, not bad. 2020, 160,704 listens. 2021. So in 2021, we rebranded the beginning of 2021, tail end of 2020. and beginning of 2021, we rebranded from the Hyper Conscious Podcast, change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you live. We rebranded from the Hyper Conscious Podcast to the one and only Next Level University. Level up your life, love, health, and wealth. Boom. But we kind of started over, not fully. But in 2021, we went from 160,000 listens in 2020 to only 150,000 in 2021. So we actually went down. And I put in parentheses rebrand. In 2022, we had 255,000 listens approximately, which totals to about 730,000. So in 2023, we are projected for 500,000 almost, a little less than 500,000. And that's if things continue at the same growth rate. But the point is, Kevin and I did have to start over, kind of. I want to share this briefly. Imagine you're a young person in early high school, and you have some older friends. You have an older sister, an older sibling, and my sister used to host all these parties, and so I used to hang out with 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds and people in their late teens. I was always with people older than me through her. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I want a magnificent career. One day, I want a career like my hero, Steve Jobs. I want to be the CEO of a Fortune 50 company like my hero, Steve Jobs at Apple. And I have these big goals and dreams, and I want to get straight A's and that, and the other thing. Aiming really high. But you look around, and everyone makes more money than you do. You look around, and you're a cart kid at a golf course, and you look around and you're a busboy at the same golf course, and you look around and now you're in college, and it's summer, and you're up in Maine, and you're painting for $8 an hour under the table, and you're painting these mansions on the water up in Damascotta, Maine, and they were beautiful. That was actually really quite awesome, some of the views and stuff. But you don't make a lot of money. Everyone around you makes more than you do. But you still have these huge dreams, these huge goals. And you know that if you stick with it and you work hard in school and you study and you get your degree, you know that one day you'll make more money. And then you graduate with high distinction from Worcester Polytech, and you get a master's degree after that, and then you go into the workforce, and all of a sudden, you make more money than everyone you know. All of a sudden, a couple of years go by, you go from 65 to 85, from 85 to 105, from 105 to 125, from 125 to 180 plus, and all of a sudden, you make more money than everyone you know. Except for the people at the company that are above me, obviously. But like all my old friends and all that. And I remember one time I had a young friend when I was younger, and he's like, dude, you got to get a real job. And I remember thinking, like, what do you mean by a real job? What's a real job? He said 40 hours a week. And at the time, he was literally mowing lawns at a golf course. And I remember thinking to myself, like, you're going to judge me because I don't have a real job? I'm in school. No, I'm not going to do that.
Next Level University and Kevin is exactly where you need to be if you're a podcaster. When I first started out just a few months ago, I had no clue on the direction I was going. I was getting hustled by another company that was giving me not even close to the value that Kevin and Next Level U was giving me. They literally changed the trajectory of my podcast, have helped me out tremendously. They understand the clients. I promise you, you will not go wrong with dealing with Kevin and Next Level U. I'll see you there.
But again, undervalued. And then eventually, your dreams come true. You're a 6-figure earner in your early 20s. I remember I was getting, Kev, $12,000 checks, US dollars, every other week. Imagine a bi-weekly $12,000 check. And I drove a 2005. I didn't have any expenses. So I was I think my rent was $450 a month, something like that, with my girlfriend at the time. It was like I was just rolling in it. So I built an investment account, and I had $150,000, and the investments were growing. It was just awesome, right? But dude, that didn't start in my early 20s. It's not like I just woke up and suddenly I was wealthy. It took middle school, high school, college, master's, corporate, multiple jobs in corporate, and then eventually, boom, overnight success, quote unquote. And then 26 years old, I get in a car accident and I decide this is not what I want to do with my life. And many of you have heard that story. My father passed away in a car accident when he was 28. I was 2. When I was 26, I got in a bad car accident and I looked at the pictures of his car and I saw the pictures of my car and it messed me up. And so I reevaluated my life and I started over, quote unquote. Started a little podcast called Conversations Change Lives. I interviewed the one and only Kevin Palmieri.
Pretty good first guest.
Episode 1. Pretty good first guest. Yeah. And it was on an iPhone. And then Kevin started a little podcast called the Hyper Conscious Podcast. And then we teamed up. The Hyper Conscious Podcast meets Conversations Change Lives, which is a terrible title. And so we went all in on Hyper Conscious. And then we rebranded again 3 or 4 years after that. And so here we are, right? And now we're finally more successful than both of us were back then. But we were broke for so many years. And by so many years, I mean like 3 or 4, but it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. I went from a 1% earner of nearly $200,000 USD per year, which in terms of earning net worth, that's not 1%, but like in terms of earning income, that actually is. Statistically, I said that once and someone disagreed. It's like, you don't understand what I'm saying, but that's fair. And by the way, I'm talking globally. I'm not talking about 1% in the US. I'm talking about globally. Yeah, doesn't matter. The point is, I went from that to, I remember landscaping for my friend's mother for $100 in the hot sun for 4 hours. That's what starting over felt like. And I was driving a car that was $3,200 that I bought from my friend who he drove that car in high school. It was actually from my friend's sister. And I was broke. I was a broke entrepreneur. I went from engineer, master's degree, MBA, super successful inside sales, engineer to outside sales engineer, making all this money. And literally I had people in my life say, you have achieved what everyone else strives for. Why would you ever give that up? And I did, started over. And here we are now, 6 years in, and now we're finally, quote unquote, successful. But it didn't start there. And so hopefully that starting over piece, whatever it is for you, first of all, you're not starting over from scratch because you have the skills, you have the knowledge, and I have applied everything that I've learned back then and then some into our business now. But perception-wise, reputation-wise, yeah, you're starting over. Yeah. And it sucks. Hey, Kev, it was terrible.
Of course.
Going from being seen as so successful and being looked up to and 150 grand in the bank, doing whatever I want, to literally a failure in other people's eyes, it really messed with me.
I can imagine.
It was really hard. Wait, you're a fitness coach now? Like, what are we doing here, man? Like, no one gets it. But now it's like, oh, wow, they did it, right? So it's just interesting. And you got to keep it in here. You got to keep it in your heart. You got to keep it in your heart and you got to let it drive you. And, luckily it drove me. And luckily when I got made fun of, it actually made me work harder, which I know is not the response for everybody, but
true.
One day they'll value me. No, that's never going to happen. They're probably never going to value you. But at the end of the day, work harder, let it drive you. You can do it. And yeah, you got to start over sometimes. And I'm glad we did.
I am too. You got to believe it'll be worth it. I think that's the biggest thing. Will it be worth it? The getting out of a relationship that sucks to get in a relationship that's better. Will it be worth it? That's up to you. That's up to you to decide. But I have the belief that it will. And I think it's like that with a job. I think it's like that with a career. I think it's like that with everything. Relationship, certain family things. Sometimes you got to start over. It does not mean... What was
it like for you to go from everyone seeing you as successful with a sports car and 6 figures to like a broke entrepreneur with a podcast and a cartoon avatar?
I didn't have a lot of people in my life, so I don't really think it mattered that much. Honestly, for me, it's like I didn't have that many. I had 3 friends. Really. I had 3 friends. And it was you, Matt, and I had a couple other friends. But you and Matt Matt thought it was the coolest stuff ever. Matt was like, dude, you quit your job? Like, hell yeah. That's awesome. And then that's something he did later in life. So I think you paved the path for me. I think I paved the path for him in a way. So for me, my family thought I was crazy, understandably. I do not blame them for that. But I didn't have a lot of people in my life to really judge me, which I'm very grateful for. And I don't know. I don't get a lot of hate on social media. Again, I'm sure I will someday, but I don't know. I think people tend to like me on social media for whatever reason, which I'm all about. We're actually going to talk about that in our next episode. I'm super excited to do the next episode. I'm getting ahead of myself, but all right, we got to hop because I have a call. It's going to be fine. We hit our 15 minutes. Boom. Next Level Nation, April 1st, 2023. If you are local to New England, or you want to take a trip, you want an excuse to come across the country, we're having Next Level Live. It is our first live event of the year. We're taking 50 people. It's going to be $97 a ticket, and it's going to be not just a speaking event. It's not a speech. It's not a presentation. It's an experience, and that's really how we're setting this up. It's just Alan and I running this. There's no other speakers. It's literally just us. It's going to be our way, our design, what we think is best for you as a community member. So please join us. The link will be in the show notes.
Picture a live in-person version of this podcast. If this podcast has helped you change your life, imagine what the real thing in person will be. So we just had our most successful monthly meetup last night. I think we had 30 plus people in the Zoom room. It was awesome. It was awesome. If you missed it, we are sorry. If you were there, thank you for joining us. Kevin and I picked the next monthly meetup topic. So again, we do them every month, hence the name Monthly Meetup. It will be on building trust, safety, and communicating effectively in your relationship. The date is to be determined, and by that I mean I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's going to be most likely the first Thursday of every month. Yeah, it's the first Thursday of every month, right?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. So the first Thursday of February.
It'd be February 2nd, if that's the case.
February 2nd. Thank you.
Yes.
February 2nd, 2023. Building trust, safety, and communicating effectively in your relationship. And yes, we're talking about intimate relationships there. So that's going to be talking about how Kevin and I are able to chase our dreams and goals and be so focused and goal-oriented while also making sure we have the most magnificent intimate relationship possible. And I'm excited for that one because over at the other business, The We, which is my business with Emilia, where we talk about relationships, we coach couples, married couples all over the world. I'm very excited to do this. We realized that in 2022, we did 12 meetups and not a single one of them was about intimate relationships. So health, wealth, life, and love. We don't want to forget the love piece. So do not miss that one. The link to register will be in the show notes.
Next Level Nation tomorrow for episode number 1212. Going to Alan's point, are you really too much? So I had a call recently with somebody who has had a lot of hate thrown their way. And they've been called a lot of names, and this person wasn't sure why. And we went into that. This is going to be a good one. If you've ever been called too loud, too much, whatever, this is going to be a great episode for you. If you've ever called somebody that, it's also going to be a great episode for you. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. We are grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans, we have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
And we'll see you at the next level.